Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with pockets, and pockets are fun. We're going to go back actually to talking about pleats, if you remember them from a couple of chapters ago. So let's take a look at the reference real quick. Oh my god, I hate the new like Windows thing. It makes something weird. So as you can see here on the top, we have the sort of like a Velcro pockets. It's not a button, it's more like Velcro. And they have a pleat here on the inside. So this is something called a box pleat. And a box pleat comes from combining two knife pleats. So if you guys remember our pleat session, we mentioned that if you have a piece of fabric and you fold it, and then continue. So three sections, right? So like this, it's first section, second section, and then third section. And of course, you sew these guys together and these guys together. That creates something called a knife pleat, right? And if you combine a lot of these knife pleats, well, you get the like pleated skirt, similar to what we did before. Now, if you were to grab this thing and mirror it to the other side, you will get this thing, which is called a box pleat, okay? And it follows the same rules. It's the same like basic thing that we're gonna be doing. It's just called a box pleat, right? So that's what we need to do. We need to create a pocket, and we're gonna do a box pleat here on both sides. So the good thing is these guys are symmetrical. So if we grab our internal rectangle shape, let's add it right here. We're gonna create our box pocket. That seems about right. Maybe just position it a little bit lower. So just grab the sections here. Oop. Let's go to my transform point segment. There we go. Double click. There we go. So I would say right about there. Maybe a little bit more like horizontal. And yeah, that's gonna be our box pocket. So I'm gonna select the pattern, right click, and we're gonna clone this pattern. Let's move it like down here for a second. Now, of course, right now it's going to be all the way up here, which we're going to have to move. I'm actually going to start moving it already. So if you guys remember, when we were doing pleats, when you do a pleat, you need, again, three sections. The three sections are super, super, super important. So we need to create our box pleat from this section right here. Now, I don't want to do the whole section, because if I do the whole section, then the pleat is going to be like super, super long. It's going to be like a super huge pocket. So I'm going to go here to my add point splines, or actually just select this. We're going to split this thing in half. So split, uniform split. Let's do one. Okay. And then we can just do internal line. There we go. Of course, cut and sew, and we delete one of these pieces. Now, from this new piece, we're gonna extend offset as pattern outline. We're gonna extend our pleats. So here we're gonna decide how wide we want the pleats to go. I think we're gonna go with like 10 millimeters. Now, probably a little bit more. Let's go 20 millimeters. So we're gonna say 20 millimeters. We're gonna create internal line, and of course we're gonna do a couple of more like this, 3. Okay. So we hit okay. Very important, super, super important that this piece right here, this first piece, is only half of the pocket, okay? Do not go further or higher, because then when we sew it back to the square that we have there, things are gonna be looking really, really weird. So I'm gonna grab this line now, right click, and we're gonna unfold, of course, and this is gonna create the pleats, okay? So this big centerpiece is gonna go back into space, and then these things are gonna fold on front of it, and we're gonna sew all of the things together, okay? Should be fairly logical, but it is a couple of steps that we need to follow. Now, one of the good things about this is if we do this once, we can repeat these pockets as many times as we need. So now we're going to use our pleats tool. We're not going to be folding this by hand. So we're just going to run across, double click, and we're going to select a box pleat. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to take into consideration. First, how many lines do we have for each pleat? You might think, well, it's 3 per pleat, right? No, it's 2 per pleat. So we're going to change this to 2. Okay, so we're going to have 2 per pleat, per pleat. Then we need to select which one is going to be an inside fold and which one is going to be an outside fold. Do we want the pleat to be on the outside of the element, or we want the pleat to be on the inside? In this case, I want this to be on the inside. So as you can see, by default, it's going to try to create the pleat towards the outside. You can see that the outside fold is going to be red, this one right here, and we don't want that. We want the reverse direction. There we go. Actually, now that I think of it, oh yeah, we're fine here with the 2s. Well, let me just make sure that we're right there. Box pleats, and yeah, and we're gonna hit OK. Is this working? Let me try that again, because it looked weird. We should have like the red lines on the other side. So this is a box split again. We reverse the direction because we want the outside fold to be, well, on the outside. And let's hit OK. Now I'm gonna right click here, and to make the splits fold a little bit nicer, we're gonna remove the gravity. You can of course let this like flow freely, but in my experience, it's a little bit better if we just like turn off the gravity. I'm also gonna select everything here, like the pants. I'm just gonna Control K to freeze them. And now if we simulate, you're gonna see that bloop, we get the pleat. Ta-da! The pleat is looking nice. We're getting more distance than I thought we were gonna get though, which is a little bit weird. We should be getting only like half that distance. Let me go back a couple of steps here. Let's go here again. And let's, again, offset this pattern's outline. Let's do 2 segments instead of 3. Hit OK. And now we're gonna unfold. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Let's try this again. So pleats fold, double click, box pleat, reverse direction. 2 segments. There we go. That's what I want. So 2 external lines and then the internal line. Hit OK. Now, again, if we simulate, bloop, we get that nice little fold right there. So again, I'm going to grab the whole pants, and we're going to Control K to freeze them. There we go. And this is the pleat. As you can see, the pleat is like behaving the way I expect the pleat to behave. We're getting this very nice effect. But we need to change some of the sewing lines. So we're going to go here to segment sewing, and we're gonna sew this line to this line. See that? And then we're gonna sew this line to this line. Okay. Same thing on the bottom side. So this line to this line, this line to this line. As you can see, it's to the outer edge. Very common to forget about that one. Let me change the simulation properties again. There we go. And then this is the important part. We're gonna use free sewing to sew this line to this line, right? So we need to do the external line as well. Let me try that again. It's from here to there. There we go. So from the pleat in and from the pleat out, from the pleat in and from the pleat out, from the pleat in and from the pleat out. Perfect. Now when we simulate, ta-da, this is what we get. And as you can see, we get this very, very nice effect. You might need to increase the particle distance because it's just a, again, small piece. So let's do 10 and simulate again. Just pinch there a little bit. It's free gravity, so it's floating all the way. But that's it. That's going to give us the nice little like pleat pocket. And of course, it's going to give us a little bit more like space on the inside. So that's what's going to give us this sort of effect that we have here, like the inner line going on the pocket. So, of course, now we need to sew in the pocket, but we don't want to sew. I mean, we could sew in the pocket just as is, just like this. But if we do that, the problem is that there's not going to be a lot of room in the pocket, right? So, even though it would be perfectly valid to just sew this pocket into the square shape right here, we're going to extend the borders. So, I'm going to grab this guy right here, this guy right here, this guy right here, and this guy right here. Right-click, and we're going to offset this pattern outline. We only want one section, of course. And here's where we're going to decide how like thick or thin we want the pockets to be. I think 20 millimeters might be a little bit too much, so I'm going to go back to 10 millimeters. So I just want a little bit of room on the pockets and can hit OK. Now, the problem here is that the sewings, if you remember, we had some sewing lines here on the inside. So we need to just clean them up. So I'm just going to delete that one and that one. And on the top, it's fine. So this one's on the bottom, we need to rebuild. So we're going to, again, go to our free sewing tool. We're going to go from the pleat in and from the pleat out on the edge, not on the border, on the edge. So from the pleat in and from the pleat out. Perfect. Now, of course, oh, actually, I messed up here. There's one option when we offset the lines. One option that's called corner, like free corner. So right click. Again, offset as pattern outline, and this one, unfill corner. There we go. And let's go. Pattern lines. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right click, offset pattern outline, and it's this unfill corner. Very important to do that one because those are the corners that we're going to be sewing, right? I mean, that should be pretty straightforward, right? We're just gonna sew those two lines together, so that one and that one. Now here, this one's, be careful, those are the ones that are messed up, because it tried to like kind of like extrude the sewing line, and we don't want that. We don't want to keep that sewing line on the top border right there. So again, free sewing from the pleat in and from the pleat out, or a little blue dot. We know why that blue dot is important. And there we go. So now, if we were to, oh yeah, one more thing here. This is something that we haven't really talked about, but it's really important. Every seam or every border you have, every fold you have, will have something called the fold angle. So as you can see, this has a fold angle of 180. And the fold angle dictates where the line is going to be going. So in this case, since we want the fold angle to be going back to create the depth of the pocket, we're going to be changing this fold angle down to 0, okay? Very important to do that. So now when we hit simulate, you're going to see that we create this nice little box, which is going to give us, well, of course, the volume for the element. If we were to leave the folding angle at 180, it's just going to be flat. It is going to sew the things, but it's going to try to keep it smooth throughout the surface. And of course, if we go to 360, it's going to fold it to the other side. So again, if at any point you need to switch the way your fold or any edge on your cuts is working, make sure to just select it and change the fold angle. It's very like precise, particular detail, but it's part of the drill. So yeah, there we go. Now, of course, what I'm going to do here, so I'm going to say Control C, Control R to mirror paste another pocket on this side. And we're going to live link them. Or link to editing. I always say live link. Kind of like think about Maya. Right click and symmetric pattern with sewing. There we go. That's the thing that we want. Let's keep the pocket down here. And then we're going to sew this, of course, free sewing. We're going to sew the border to the border. And then we're going to sew in the other border to the other border. Half of the pocket to half of the pocket. And the other half of the pocket to the other half. See how the pleat doesn't play any role in this thing? And that's why we had to keep the same like half distance of the pocket when we were building this. Otherwise, now that we're going to like sew everything together, things wouldn't work. So I'm going to grab this guy right here. I'm going to click right click and say superimpose over. And as you can see, it's going to try to, actually that didn't work. I want to just like move it to where it's supposed to be. Let's just get them as close as possible. I mean, since the simulation is frozen on the pants, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. Let's just simulate. And ta-da! We have our two front pockets ready. There you go. Puffy, nice little detail, a little bit of depth. I know that here in the concept, you can't really tell whether or not there's a lot of depth. It doesn't seem to be a lot of depth, but I think it would be a nice addition to show you how to do the depth. Now, remember, at any point, you can just delete those little things and keep them really flat. I kind of like this sort of effect right here. Now, as you can see, these guys, they do have a couple of like stitchings and stuff. So let's do them real quick. I'm going to grab this guys right here, the square. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say offset as internal line. That seems about right. So, okay. And yeah, that's it. So eventually when we do the layer clone over and give this thickness, those little lines are going to give me a little bit more, detail on the whole thing. Now for the flap on the top, right? Like we want this sort of like a Velcro flap. We're going to go here to our polygon tool, polygon draw tool. We're going to start here. Let's go down. And then I would say like about, it's on the inside, so about there. And then out of the 45-degree angle. And then up there. Now if the points are not aligned, we know that we will just right click, align 2-point x-axis. There we go. Select this line and unfold. So that's going to be my little like cover for the pockets. You can see we're going to see a little bit of the corner there. That's fine. Something that we want to keep in mind is that we need to have an internal line as well. So actually, yeah, let me go back. It's going to be a lot easier if we do it here. So I'm going to go the internal line routes instead. So the flap's going to go there, about there, and there. There we go. Same deal. You can also unfold an internal line, which is fine. And now we're going to right click this and we're going to clone as pattern. Right there. And then this is the pattern that we're going to be working with. So as you can see, the pattern here, it has the Velcro thing. We're going to be using a pin to simulate the Velcro because it's not something that we're going to be seeing. But you can see that you can kind of like visualize first the seam on the outside, which is important, but also like the squarish Velcro like pack. So I'm gonna select the whole thing, right click, offset as internal line. That seems about right. And then we're gonna use our internal rectangle tool. Let's create a nice little rectangle there and move it the center. There we go. So it simulates the Velcro tab, right? And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the little flap. So now the only thing we need to do is well, I'm gonna first of all Control C, Control R to copy the flap on this side. Select one. Select one. Select the other. Right click. Symmetric pattern with sewing. There we go. And now we're gonna free sew or just segment sew. Actually, that's free sew because we have 2 segment points. So free sewing from one point to the other and from one point to the other. Let's bring both patterns up so they're a little bit closer and simulate. That's it. We have our little elements right there. Now, you might say, hey, you know what? Like, it's looking okay, but I think that the patterns are a little bit too, like, small or they're too low. No problem. We just grab this internal pattern right here. We can make it bigger. Well, not bigger, but probably just, like, lower it. Because if we make it bigger, we're going to have to make the other, like, the flap bigger as well. Now, if we want to do that, just make sure to grab both of them. Let's make them a little bit bigger. And now it's just a matter of making sure this thing is aligned. There we go. And we simulate again. And now the flap's going to be lower. Perfect. Now the little square thing, the little square tab is, or wait a second. Why did that thing move? Let's go back. Sounds like we didn't select, like we selected the internal shape instead of the other one. So let's, yeah, I'm just going to move this down. There we go. So we simulate again. And now, there we go. So the little flap is going to be up. Now, let's give a little bit of detail to this, guys, right? So I'm going to grab this guy right here. Is that? Yeah. Just going to grab the whole thing here. I'm going to right-click and say clone layer clone over. Let's bring this here. And as you can see, that's going to give it a little bit more, like, puffiness to the whole thing. Actually, let me select both elements. Again, right-click, layer clone over. And that's it. So when we simulate, those pockets are going to look a little bit better. And we can grab all of the pants, hit Control K to unfreeze. And we're going to have our cargo pants with those little like extra pockets ready to go into battle. It looks like we have the little Velcro stuff. And you guys remember the thing that we did before? So we can grab this guy right here, like the whole patterns. Let me just try and... Why am I trying to grab like the pattern? But there we go. So grab the patterns. Let's change the particle distance down to 10. That's of course going to give me a little bit more detail. And for instance, I can grab this internal line or this pattern and change the shrinkage weft to 105. That's going to give me a couple more wrinkles as well. So it's gonna kind of like push it out. So it's going to, again, look a little bit puffier. I'm definitely going to do the same thing here for the pockets. So I'm going to grab both pockets. Right-click, layer clone over. I know I'm going to place them like down here. But that's also going to give me a little bit more detail. It's going to make them a little bit puffier as well. So that's the kind of thing that you wanna look for, because otherwise you're gonna have to be doing this detail inside of ZBrush or other softwares. And if you can already get like this sort of effect here, I think it's really, really valuable. Let's just push this thing a little bit. That's the the pleat like working a little bit weirdly. But, you know, it's part of the simulation problems. There we go. Now, before we move on, let's change the fabric. I don't think we have a I don't think we have like a military like fabric. Military, no, we don't. But it's rather easy to find one. Give me 1 second. There we go. So I'm gonna go to the fabrics here, and I'm gonna look for denim, and I'm gonna bring in like a basic like denim, just this one's right here, 100% denim. There we go. So pretty much every single part of my element is gonna be denim. So we're just gonna assign the denim effect so that we get a little bit of texture. That's super cool. And then on the denim, we can go to the texture map, and on your folder files on chapter 5, included this military pattern. So that we have this sort of effect. As you can see, the normal map that we had from the denim effect, it's gonna make it look quite nice. I do think the pattern's a little bit too big, so I'm gonna select any piece, going to texture, and we can edit the 3D texture. Let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the pockets. Now, of course, this camouflages. Maybe it's a little bit too much. Let me see if we can change the saturation. Ooh, I like that. I think that looks way better. That way we can appreciate all of the details that we've included on the pants, right? Because I think the other color was pretty distracting. So yeah, so the saturation there is gonna really work. We can again play a little bit with the elements. Maybe this is like a snow effect or something. But yeah, I think I do want the pants to be a little bit baggier on the bottom side. So let's stop the simulation. Let's go back to patterns. Bring this thing down. And I'm probably just gonna select the lines on both sides. Just make them a little bit bigger. And probably a little bit bigger here on the inside as well. I just want them a little bit baggier on the bottom side. Oh, but yeah, that's a problem. Yeah. So as you saw there, it is working, but we also need to bring these little lines. Remember the lines that we did? So we also need to bring them down, because otherwise they won't match, and then we're gonna start getting some like crumply effect. That crumply effect that you're seeing there, that's a sewing problem. Yeah. No, let's keep it the other way. I mean, we can do it. It's just we're gonna have to move a couple of things, and I think it's better if I show you a couple of other elements. So before we finish this lesson, guys, one thing that I want to show you. There we go. Is how can we recycle these pockets, right? Like, we created these amazing pockets here on the front. I want to have 2 more pockets here on the back, but I don't want to go over the whole thing again. Like, I don't want to do all the like seams and stuff. No problem. The only thing we need to do is we need to copy these patterns to the back. And to do that is just a matter of grabbing the patterns, hitting Control C, and saying Control B over here. Now, as you can see, we definitely need to find like the proper position for this, guys. It's gonna be like closer to the center. I would say probably about there. That seems like a good position. And we're gonna grab this, guys, as well, like this whole thing. Control C, Control B. Just go there. Technically, like this thing should be working perfectly fine. The only thing we need to fix are the free sewing. So let's edit the sewings. And there's like outer lines that we have here. Well, that's part of the main line of the main pleat. It shouldn't be sewn onto anything else. So technically, again, we should be able to just, let's grab this thing, Control C, Control R. Let's go over here. Let's start linking them. So right click, especially the first one. That's the most important one. So symmetric pattern with sewing, because those are the ones that are going to be sewn into the pockets. These ones are going to be like automatically sewn to where they're supposed to be sewing. So same thing for this one, like this main pattern right here. Let's right click and symmetric pattern with sewing. There we go. So now free sewing again. And we're going to sew the side of this guy to this back pocket. The side of this guy to this back pocket. And then half of the pocket to half of the pocket, and the other half of the pocket to the other half of the pocket. There we go. Of course, we're gonna sew in the top part here, the flap, to the flap. Cool. So now, again, to make our lives a lot easier, the best thing we can do is just grab like this whole pocket, and on the 3D view, help a little bit, right? The nicer we are with the simulation, the nicer the simulation is going to be with us. So about there should be fine. Grab this whole pocket right here. Bring it back. And bring it up. Now, again, to make sure that this thing works as nicely as possible, I'm going to grab the pants, Control K. Freezing, whoa, there we go. Freezing the transformations is really good when you have like really complex simulations, just to, again, save yourself a little bit of work. I'm going to save just in case anything crashes here. And let's simulate. And there we go. Back pockets ready. So yeah, that's the, as I mentioned, we talked about this before we were doing the pockets. If you do it once, you can just like copy and paste these pockets as many times as you want. And you can actually like export this garment or save this as a garment. So now every time you need a pair of pockets, you just grab this one and that's it. Like you only have to do pockets once and that's it. I've seen several artists have like a collection of specific pieces, like different types of pockets. And that way they save a lot of time by just like importing them every time they need it. So yeah, that's it, guys. This is it for this part, the pockets part. And in the next video, we are going to do a very quick shirt. We're just going to do a very quick t-shirt. It's going to be a small video just to give him something else on top here. And then we're going to start decorating with all of the remaining accessories that we need here on the pants. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.